And we are so excited today. My name is Mike Campagna, Digital Services Manager at the Barrington Area Library, and my awesome planning partner, Roseanne Bonish, and the whole Laconia Technology section are very excited that you are registered and here today with us to hear from such a wonderful panel. So a little bit about the format. Today's session, we'll hear from Rachel Rezek from the Fremont Public Library, then Mason Newberry from the Saline County Public Library in Saline County, Arkansas. And we'll finish the speaker portion of the program with Jennifer Chaika, Carrie Powiesiak, and Heather Ross from Illinois Libraries Present. After we hear from speakers, we'll move into our Q&A section. And if you have questions, please put them in the chat and Roseanne and I will collect them. We'll share them with the speakers and you all at the end. As I mentioned, we are recording this program and we will share it out with everyone who registered. With that being said, take it away, Rachel.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Carrie is going to be controlling these slides. So Carrie, if you could move into mine. All right. If you could just head to the first slide. Thank you. So as we said, I am Community Services Librarian here at Fremont. Fremont is a relatively small district. I think we technically are counted as a medium-sized library for Illinois, but compared to our neighbors, we are relatively small with a more modest budget, 4.9 million. We do not cover any one town. We are portions of 7 or 8 towns in the area, which makes it a little bit challenging to do meaningful programs because we are not identified with any one community. Our biggest area of growth in the last 10 years or so has been with seniors. We have 2 large-scale active senior communities who are very active in our library district. We've had to pivot a lot with them to make sure that we are meeting their needs, and we have grown our programming budget accordingly. So pre-COVID, we were offering a minimum of 2 programs every week in the evening. Once COVID came into being, we pivoted very quickly to offering that online. I think I made a bunch of calls the first day that we were closed, canceling everything, and then immediately started looking into how to do online programs. And we had our first program within about 2 weeks. So we never stopped once we started doing that. And once we were back in the building in June of 2020, we started looking into offering hybrid programs because it's something that I'd actually wanted to do for our community well before COVID. We just never really had the time and capacity to investigate it. COVID, for better and worse, gave us that little bit of wiggle room to start looking into new ways of offering our programs. We started doing hybrid in September of last year and haven't really looked back since. I've learned a lot by making a lot of mistakes. So you will hopefully benefit from the challenges that I've encountered. It's been a learning experience, and I've got to admit, I've enjoyed having that chance to learn something new. When we're talking about hybrid programs, the definition that I use is that your audience is physically present in your meeting room and you have an audience online. The speaker can be physically present in your building, or they can be online. And each of those scenarios offers slightly different challenges that we will talk about in a few slides. The interesting thing is, any program that you would offer as a physical in-person program pre-COVID, you can also offer hybrid. They just have slightly different requirements that require you to plan for different scenarios, different possibilities. Next slide, please. So why are we talking about hybrid? Why did I want to go hybrid even before COVID? Well, first and foremost, right now, COVID is still a big problem in a lot of our communities. And that's probably not going to go away for a couple years, I would say, unfortunately. The other aspects are you can serve your existing audience in better ways. We have a lot of older folks, like I said, who can't drive in the evening. They can't drive at all. We're in the suburbs, so we're not really on bus lines. We're not on train lines. Even if we were, they don't really come to where the library is. When we built our new building 20 years ago, it was on the edge of town. The town has grown around us, but it's still not central. And so it's not walking distance to most of our community. We also, what I've discovered is we have a lot of parents with young kids or with kids who are active in after school activities that need a lot of driving around. And those folks want to come to our programs, but they can't. They're just not able to get here. So offering hybrid programs allows them to attend or watch a recording later. It's been great. I've been getting really interesting feedback from that part of the community that I honestly had never really expected to be able to reach. We also can serve audiences that we've never really had access to. We pick up some of our business community, and that's been interesting. We've offered business programming in the past and haven't had good turnout. And it turns out it's because those folks just can't get here physically to attend a program, but they can hop on a lunchtime program with relatively little problem. So that's been interesting to learn too. We get a lot of our patrons who have moved away or who are only here part of the year. They come to our programs. It's been nice to see their names popping up on our attendance sheets and getting emails from them. The other great idea behind hybrid program is I can be very creative in who I bring in. We can explore lots of really great partnerships, either formal, like with ILP, or ad hoc, just by getting an email from a programmer at another library saying, hey, does anyone want to go in on us with this presenter or this topic? We can't afford it on our own, but if we all pitch in, we can bring it down to a really reasonable budget point for each of us. The one challenge that we get into is that patrons, there are a lot of patrons who really value that in-person experience. They may have the technology, but they want to see people, especially for the folks who they live alone, they're widowed, what have you. They just want to connect with their community, and the library is where they've always gone to for that. So we need to make sure that we're still continuing to serve those folks, which is why hybrid is a really good solution to that. And for a lot of our patrons, access to technology and the ability to use that technology is still a huge issue. So you're going to continue to see that. And that's why this hybrid option can be really valuable in ways that you may not really anticipate until you've been doing it for a little while. Next slide. So when you're trying to decide what to prioritize when you start hybrid programming, you really just have to start with what you know about your community. What programs are most popular? Do you want to go with things that you know are comfortable and are already successful, or do you want to try and look at new exciting topics, things that are maybe a little more sensitive, to try and pull people in that way? It's just questions to ask yourself as you're moving into this and planning. Does your audience really lend itself to hybrid programs? One thing that we've learned is that kids and teens don't really respond, in our community at least, to hybrid programs. They either want fully online, or more realistically, they want in person. So we're not really spending a lot of time and money doing hybrid programs for those audiences. We're prioritizing the in-person only. If things change, we will hopefully shift with that. But right now, it just doesn't make sense for us to do hybrid or much online period for that part of our community. And then, is your community one that really wants more in-person, high-touch, interactive programming rather than online? At my library, I cannot count the number of times I've had patrons say, your programs are fantastic. I never plan on coming back to in-person. I'm so glad you're doing online. That was not the reaction I expected, but they started saying that during the peak of COVID. They said, hey, what's your plan for after COVID? Because I don't want to come and sit in a meeting room. I want to cook dinner and then sit and eat dinner while I watch a program in my living room, on my TV or on my computer, on my phone. I was surprised by that, but even now, when we have lots of people attending in person, we are still getting 90% of our audience online. So that's been very interesting to observe that over the last 6 months or so. Next slide. Another thing to keep in mind is the technology and internet capacity of your community. A lot of Illinois still does not have high-speed internet, and a lot of patrons in areas that are well served by high-speed broadband, they just don't have it themselves. So one of the things that we do a lot is watch parties. I don't label them as watch parties. I've learned that being too descriptive can turn some people off. So we just call them programs and we say the speaker's not going to be physically present. So, so we just treat it like any other program. Another example, author events at my library don't do well. I can't say, come meet so-and-so, the author, but I can say, we're going to have a program on this topic, and the speaker is an author who wrote a book on it. That will pull people in. You just have to kind of know how to communicate about it. Another thing to keep in mind is, do you have a large community, a large population of non-native English speakers who you might be able to reach with your programming? Because Zoom and a lot of the other platforms do give you the option to integrate translated services or translation services so that they're actually able to listen to the program in their native language being translated simultaneous to the event. Really, it's not cheap. You do have to pay for it, but it's so easy to arrange now. There's almost no excuse not to offer it when it makes sense for like your bigger programs where you're trying to really reach out to that community. And then also you can, here on Zoom, turn on the automatic transcriptions. You can also, if you want something that's better quality, hire a transcription service to do the live transcribing that's integrated into your program. So we just use the auto-generated because we've never had a request for something more formal, but for our bigger programs where I've had pre-COVID where we had sign interpreters, I would absolutely do that for these programs if we ever receive a request. Okay, thank you. The second thing to think about is your staffing. Hybrid programs really are an adjustment. There's a learning curve. If you're comfortable with technology or with just that kind of state of flux, you pick it up very easily. But I'm the only librarian who does our programs here at Fremont, and I can tell you, it is more tiring. It's more of a mental, it's a little more draining mentally after a program. And so it can really take a lot out of you. You have to be sensitive to that when you're trying to do these hybrid programs. Are you running individual programs with a team, or is it just with one librarian? Because there are some questions you're going to want to think through about how you staff that. and what you can do during the program, because one person monitoring two audiences is going to take a little more attention. And so you may have to drop some of the nice touches that you've been offering with your programs. You just want to think it through so that you kind of know what you're prioritizing during the program. Does your staff actually have to be present during your programs, or are you asking them to work a desk during a program? I know pre-COVID, we had a lot of people who would start a program and then have to step out and cover a reference desk or do something else outside of the room. When you have these technology, these programs that require a lot of technology, you can't really do that. So you do want to make sure you're thinking about how you're staffing and what you're doing. The next question is, how much support do you have from IT? Are you, or is your programming librarian going to have to make all of these decisions and figure all of these things out themselves? Or is there someone who can help and look into that and help with the setup and work through that learning curve with them? And then also, how many programs are you going to offer every month? Not just not wanting to burn people out, but also making sure that you offer enough that this is not something they do once a month and then are not going to retain those skills that they need to be able to think through, get everything set up, and then pivot if something goes wrong. Just a couple little things to keep in mind. Next slide, please. Okay, and then the next question is your facility. Do you have wired internet? Do you only have Wi-Fi? Wired internet is a bit more reliable, especially if you have video and audio clips in your presentation or in the speaker's presentation. It's a little more stable if you can do wired, but you certainly can do Wi-Fi. You just need to make sure that you're thinking through how to handle it and ensuring that you've got the bandwidth that you need to make these successful. What kind of equipment do you have? What's your layout like? Are you going to have to worry about blocked views? Are you going to lose some seating because of that? What's your audio system like? I'll cover that in a little more depth, but it can be a bit of a challenge to address all of these things with the budget that you have. Lighting is also something that I've recently been looking into, because when you have a performer rather than just a lecturer, you get really interesting shadows on the face that can make it entertaining in a way that your presenter may not have intended it to be, watching the shadows on the crags in their faces. Next slide, please. Okay, so in terms of the technology that you need, there are really only three things that you really have to have. One is internet, high-speed internet, the faster the better. Like I said, wired is preferable, but it's not mandatory. You need a computer with a webcam, and that can be built in like we're using now, or it can be an external wireless or wired camera. Lots of options there. And then a good microphone for the online audience. Next slide. So like I said, anything can be successful. It's just a matter of what you want to invest in terms of trial and error. And some of them are just going to be easier to run with fewer opportunities for things to go kind of sideways. Next slide. So you definitely want to start small so that you are successful out of the gate. I recommend starting with the equipment that you have, or making smaller purchases rather than going big, because you may find that what I recommend today doesn't work for you, and you don't want to spend $1,000 on something if your budget for all of this is only a couple thousand for the year. And then once you have a few successes under your belt, just build on that, go from there, see what people respond to, and plan accordingly. So one of the most important aspects of making your hybrid programs a success is the platform that you pick. I personally prefer Zoom. I think it gives you just the right amount of control. People are very familiar with it on the patron side. Our presenters are very familiar with it. And they've made a lot of minor and major enhancements over the last 2 years to make it really work well for what we're trying to do. Others are worth exploring. If you, as a library, are locked into a certain one, just go with it. Just make sure you know it inside out so that you are taking advantage of all the little enhancements that they offer, all the small benefits that they have. And you can make the experience high quality for your at-home audience without interfering with your in-person audience. Next slide. Make sure you think about how you're going to register folks. Some of the calendar systems will have a native option, most don't, but there are different ways that you can work around that, whether it's just posting a link in the description for the at-home folks and only having the in-person folks register, having them as 2 separate events in your calendar, one for in-person, one for online. Lots of different ways to do it. Just make sure you've kind of thought through what you do when someone cancels, what you do if someone wants to switch from in-person to online or vice versa. Next slide. You can also stream your programs to different platforms like YouTube or Facebook, Twitch, what have you. There are tons of options. I used to stream a lot of stuff to Facebook, realized we weren't really getting too many people watching, and so we stopped that. What we do instead is just record it and share it through Zoom with the link that expires after a few days, and I will just basically trim off the beginning in the tool that Zoom has. It works for us. A lot of other libraries like to post on YouTube. Whatever you're doing, just make sure your presenter knows what you plan and that they are on board with it. I would have them sign off on that so you don't run into any problems. And whatever you do, make sure you know in advance, because you will get a chat at the beginning of the program from 16 different people saying, is there going to be a recording? I don't know why people are so passionate about that, but they are. So you may as well have the answer going. Next slide. Definitely true, Tracy. So you're going to have a few different potential costs. Some of them are one-time costs, your laptop, your microphones, cameras, if you need an external one. If you're getting fancy, you might use a sound mixer, and your presenter. Just so you know, the presenters, a lot of them, if they are speaking online, they're not physically coming to you, they will give you a discount. So don't be afraid to negotiate, especially if it's someone from out of the area. People are finding new audiences all across the country, around the world. And so you might be able to save a little money, which is great if you have a really tight program budget. The ongoing costs are your platform, Zoom. A lot of them you can do annual licenses and save money that way. Any streaming tools that you use, music licenses. If you are using music in your programs, you need to think about some of these things. Only a few of them are essential: your laptop, your microphone, and your platform. Next slide. So this is our beautiful system pre-COVID. It is nothing fancy. I'm hoping to get an upgrade, but we are not spending $30,000 to $50,000 on that anytime soon, let me tell you. Next slide. So these are some of the things that we've added over the last 2 years. The microphones are probably the most important ones, and I will tell you that one, the dual USB microphone, is the one that has saved my bacon far more than I expected. We've got a few other things that we're looking at adding, but I would say none of them are really essential to making our programs a success. They're just nice additions that I've thought through and said, it would be really nice to be able to do XYZ thing a little bit better. Can we put this in the budget for next year? So don't feel like you have to go out and buy any of these things, except maybe the dual microphone. I highly recommend having something like that. And I'll explain why in a minute. Next slide, please. Okay, so I'm going to run through some of this kind of quickly. You will be getting these slides. If for some reason you don't, you can email me. I will just send them to you, and they'll have a few more of the details so you can read through it at your leisure. The programs for us that have been the most popular, the best bang for the buck, and the easiest to do, so kind of my holy grail, have been lectures. Barry Bradford, if you know him, Jim Gibbons, Leslie Goddard and her lectures, they have all been huge blockbusters. Jeff Misher with his art programs, like I can get a couple hundred people coming to those. And between the in-person and the online, those are our bread and butter here. That's the bulk of our budget and the bulk of our audience. So that's the first thing that I worked on, figuring out how to do well. And after doing 2 or 3, they really do become easy in a way that I never anticipated. I like to use Zoom webinar so that we are not looking at people's noses. And also webinar gives you a lot more small enhancements that make it just much easier to run a program on a projector and for a Zoom audience that will make your life much easier. I use 2 laptops, and I really have through trial and error found that it is the easiest thing to do. I recommend using libraries laptops for the speaker and not anything that your speaker brings in, because they will either not have the right ports for your equipment, or they will be very slow, or they will have odd little things that will go sideways, and you, because it's not your laptop, will not be able to troubleshoot it on the fly. Sometimes you just have to, it's fine. No one's going to die. It's a library program. This is not brain surgery. No one will die if your program is delayed for a few minutes while you figure something out. But we all know it's just much easier, and the night goes much better if you don't have to do that on the fly. The host computer, the one that is hosting the event, is the one that's not connected to the projector. And that's because, again, you can be answering chat and have the most control and the most access, and it's not interfering with what the audience in the room is seeing. It's not interfering with your speaker. One little tip, the host laptop, your second laptop in the room that is not running the audio to the Zoom audience, needs to be muted so you don't have reverb and feedback. That's why I recommend the dual microphone, because if you aren't able to run your audio through a mixer where you're using one microphone that is collecting audio for both audiences, our equipment just won't accommodate that, unfortunately, because we have a few ports that are used for other things that we can't just disable. If you aren't able to do that, then if you try and use a wireless microphone on the 2 separate laptops, you get reverb for the Zoom audience. Not your in-room audience, just your Zoom audience. But since you're not listening to that necessarily, you're not hearing it, but they will be having a very bad experience. So dual microphones are the way to go. And then a little tip, if you're screen sharing, if your speaker is screen sharing and you're using Zoom, then you can turn off the camera so that they can move around the room. Your audience may not like it because they like to see the speaker, but if you have to pick and choose, that's the thing that I choose to disable, so that we're not dealing with people getting seasick which some of them will tell you they are, because the person is just moving in and out of the screen. Not required, just a nice little enhancement. You can also set up an external camera to capture them walking through the room, which I also find distracting, but I've tried it and I get no more complaints than I do any other way. Next slide. Okay, and then I'm not really going to run through these, but if you are using a projector for the speaker, with the speaker in the room, there are lots of little tips and tricks that you can use to make sure that everyone is having a good experience, that there's nothing on the screen that is distracting for your in-room audience, but your online audience is still getting a really good quality experience. Next slide. Okay, when you have these watch parties where your speaker is online and your audience is in the room, there are a couple things that I've learned are just a challenge. The only way I have found to hide the chat so that it doesn't pop up on the screen for the in-room audience is to disable chat and just use the Q&A. You still get that little number indicator saying that there are questions coming in, but they don't pop up and cover the screen. The other workaround, which I'm not able to use in my big meeting room, unfortunately, because of reasons, you can use an Apple TV and then screen mirror from an iPad or iPhone, because that does give you the option to mute the chat through the app. You can't do it on the desktop version. I have put an enhancement request through Zoom tech support. So maybe if 1 million of us do that, they will actually do that. It would be nice. Next slide. So discussions or craft programs, anything hands-on, interactive, are still relatively easy. You actually can make them work using the standard lecture setup with just a couple of nice enhancements, like an external mic and speaker that's omnidirectional. So it'll capture audio from all directions so that you can have a conversation. What I found, though, that we've really had a lot of luck with is the Meeting Owl, which is basically, it's on one of the previous slides. When you get the link, you can go back and see it. But it's basically just an omnidirectional microphone with cameras, multiple cameras on the top, and it pivots. As your in-person audience speaks, it will pivot the camera so that the folks online can see who is speaking and hear them. It also acts as a speaker for when your online audience is talking. It's
Yeah, go right ahead.
speaker.
Yeah, it is.
It's a speaker for the folks in the room. And you can connect it to your projector so that the folks in the room can see the folks online. It's not cheap. It's like $1,100, give or take. We held off on buying it as long as we could, but it came in very handy for some of our board meetings, and our senior book discussion groups love it. Love it. I did not anticipate that kind of love for it, but they really do enjoy it. There are several different ways to handle craft programs as well. So those are just going to be more trial and error, but you can also do them with minimal equipment. And that's where something like a smartphone or an iPad comes in really handy. You can pop it on a projector and use it to show any kind of examples or steps. Next slide, please. Okay, the performances and concerts are the ones that we've struggled the most with. I have taken a break from offering concerts online because we've had a couple issues with the audio. I think I've worked them out for the most part. If you can avoid it, don't use Zoom. Get decent quality microphones and run them through a sound mixer. Performances, again, as long as you have a decent external camera, you can do a really good job just by using a USB microphone. And maybe some lighting if you have shadows and interesting angles in your meeting room. Next slide. And there are just a few additional things to keep in mind. These will come in handier as you're actually moving into it. I just wanted to include them in the PowerPoint presentation. So do come back to that as you move into this. Next slide. Okay, so doing this yourself is the hardest part. Next slide. You absolutely can do it though, and you can do it without burning yourself out. Start small, pick just 1 or 2 programs a month or a week. Don't try and do everything all at once in one programming cycle. Set your expectations with your audience, with your coworkers, and with your presenter, so everyone kind of knows what they're going to get. Don't go overboard. We all want the experience to be really good for both audiences, but you are going to kind of have to pick and choose what's most important, because you want to be greeting people, you want to be answering the chat online. Your presenter is going to have issues. You need to make sure they're familiar with what they're doing and they know what to do. And you're going to have things to troubleshoot regardless of how well you plan. You will. Next slide. So again, just some best practices. Set the expectations with your speaker that they're going to get there very early, that they tell you exactly what's in their presentation, especially if there is audio or video. And if they are online, make sure they have downloaded anything that they are going to be broadcasting, because if their internet has issues, it will slow everything down. And it will be even worse for your in-room audience because of how many different layers of broadcast it's going through. Test everything. Make sure you have things charged, that you have batteries, and that you have adapters. Have multiple adapters if you think there's any chance you might need them. Be prepared for things to go sideways, and think through a couple alternatives so that when you do have problems, and you will, you have an idea of what you can do to resolve them without undue stress for yourself or for your audience or your speaker. Use a checklist. And I've said this like 87 times, but when you can, use wired internet. Next slide. That's it. Feel free to reach out. You give me a call, send an email, or just come to one of our programs online. And you can kind of see what it feels like to be in the audience. And then you can tell me what I need to do differently so that it's an even better experience for our audience. I absolutely love feedback. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rachel. And now we have Mason.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mason Newberry. I work at the Saline County Library. You probably never heard of that. It's in Benton, Arkansas. So it's probably about 20 minutes south of Little Rock. Today I'm going to talk about virtual programming in libraries. And a lot of my information is not on slides, so that's kind of fun. But in the comments below, tell me how you're doing. I'll see how everybody's doing today before we get into going, too formal. Hope everybody's having a good day today. Again, my name is Mason Newberry. I work at the Saline County Library in Benton, Arkansas, and virtual programming in libraries. So this is about how to reach a new audience in virtual programming. First off, I'm going to give you a few stats for some of our virtual programs. Now, some of these are virtual, and some of these are hybrid, which is both in person and virtual. So this is just a few of our stats. One of our most successful virtual programs that we did was I run a theater troupe out of my library, comprised of kids from eight years old until 14 years old. And so one of our things that we did at the beginning of the pandemic was we did a virtual production of William Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. And so of course, that's royalty free. So we didn't have to pay any royalties there, which, was always nice, not having to, spend a lot of money on things. And so we had, it was an hour long animated production. So what we used to animate that was we use this system called Vivian. And if you've ever seen the Coca commercials where they're dancing, that's pretty much what it is. It's pretty much where it's kind of like that format where people dance and stuff. But so what we did was our summer reading theme a couple years ago was animal related. And so what we did was we changed all the characters into animals. And so we filmed the show, we recorded the kids, and then I edited, that's hard to say, edited the video. And we had it reached over 3,000 people worldwide. People from 9 states tuned into it. We also had people from 10 countries watch it. So we had people from the UK and Canada and stuff like that. So it was kind of cool to see, people from different countries watch something that we did, especially with these kids. So it was kind of neat. Okay, next slide. So another program that we did was we did a Barbershop Quartet, and we had a Barbershop Quartet called Just One More. They're from Minnesota. And I found them from Gig Salad, which is a website where you can find people. So they did a 30-minute virtual Barbershop Quartet for us. And they filmed it and edited it themselves, and they sent it to us. And it was only about $200, so it was pretty well spent. We did that for summer reading as well. We posted the video on Facebook, and we had about 1,500 views. Again, that one was, we had people from 11 states and 10 countries watch the program. And we did that on National Barbershop Quartet Day. So a lot of my programs I like to do based on days. Like when we did National Radio Day, we had like a radio-thon kind of thing. So, I like to get inspiration from my programs based off of holidays, stuff like that, different funny holidays. So yeah, we did that on Barbershop Quartet Day, and it reached quite a bit of people. So next slide. Okay, one other thing that we did was, these are just some ideas that y'all can do. We did a thing called Wayla, which basically is a version of Whose Line Is It Anyway? We can't say whose line is it anyway, so we had to come up with something different. So we called it Wayla, which is what are you laughing at? There you go. Okay, so it's basically Whose Line Is It Anyway is basically what it is. And so this last year we did it with our employees. So it was me and a few other employees that we had. This year we're going to do it with local celebrities. So I'm kind of excited about that. But last year we had people from, again, 10 states and three countries watch the program. We had a view of over 2,000 people watch that program as well. So it was kind of neat. I love Whose Line Is It Anyway? I love improv sketch comedy. So it was kind of fun to get to do that, and just to have a lot of fun with it. And we had a lot of fun with it. How we did that was we filmed it in our lower reading area, and we did us four, and we had a host. We hit go live, we filmed it, and it was live on Facebook at the time. and people would send us comments, and they would send us recommendations like they did on Who's Line. So that was one thing that we did are still doing during the pandemic. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so we do our virtual Tuesdays. And so what we do on virtual Tuesdays is on the second Tuesday of the month, we do virtual bingo. On the third Tuesday of the month, we do virtual trivia. And on the fourth Tuesday of the month, we do game show. And of course, I host all of those. So it's fairly fun. I really like it. For our game show and trivia, we use a program called Live Reacting. For bingo, we use StreamYard. I'll get to those in a minute. We offer prizes for the winners of these events. That also helps bring in attendance as well. We just did one recently where we did a hybrid program, and it was office trivia. And so that was our first one in person. But we also filmed it for Facebook Live at the time as well. And we had an office prize pack. So we had an office pop figure, we had a hat, a shirt. We had gift cards. We had lots of fun stuff there. We actually had a Dundee Award. If you've ever seen The Office, that we printed off on our 3D printer in our makerspace. So yeah, that was something that we just started during the pandemic. If it wasn't for the pandemic, we probably would have done most of these. But that was one of the things as well. So next slide, please. So this is going to be part of the segment where I talk about what we use, or some of what we use, our platforms. So we use different platforms for our virtual programs. So for our game show and trivia, we use a platform called Live Reacting. And so Live Reacting, it's a virtual platform that you be in control of how you want to use it, what you want to use it. Basically, it's really, really good for game shows and trivia, because you can, what it is you, it's a platform, you open the platform, and it has on the front, it says going live in 2 minutes, join us for our game show, or you can change it to what you want to change it to. It has a countdown, so people can get ready for the game show or trivia. And then you enter the questions in ahead of time, and you put one right one in and 3 wrong ones in, and it jumbles them up into multiple choice. And then when you get ready to do the game show, you just hit live, and they see what you're seeing. At the end, it tallies up the winners. So you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that yourself. It tallies up the winners, and it will say first place is this person, second place is this person, third place is this person, and we give a prize to our first place winner. And game show is basically kind of like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, but without the lifelines, is what I always say. And trivia is you always choose a topic. So we've done Halloween, slasher films, and we've done Star Wars for May the 4th. We've done The Office, we do called the Super Bowl, stuff like that. So Live Reacting is really, really good for game show and trivia. So next slide. So StreamYard is what we use for bingo, virtual bingo. So we're also starting in June for summer reading. We're also starting bingo hybrid. So we're going to do it in person and virtually. So I'm excited to see how that goes, since we haven't done it virtually or in person before. So StreamYard is what we use for bingo, and also a lot of other nights as well. We use StreamYard for bingo, and we use StreamYard for our author talks. Woo, it's hard to say. We use StreamYard for author talks and bingo. And it's really good for bingo and author talks, because for bingo, when you start StreamYard, you can create banners at the bottom that will show what programs you have coming up, so people can see what programs they have coming up. They can see what you're doing in the future. So that's a lot of fun. People can see what you're doing and check in on that. You can also add as many as 10 people to the stream that are hosts. So you can add so what we do for bingo is we have myself, which is the host, and then we have our other adult programmer, and then we have a master card. And so when you're in the waiting room on StreamYard, they cannot hear you or see you until you add yourself to the stream. So our other person that does back end is just hanging out in the bottom. And then I could add myself to the stream and the master card. And then I just start calling numbers and go from there, and you can see comments and stuff like that. It's really good for author talks. We have found, in my opinion, it's better than Zoom for author talks, because for StreamYard, there's no limit. You don't have to pay for a limit, because on Zoom you only get 45 minutes for free. And then for StreamYard is you only get 45 minutes for free, and for StreamYard, you can copy the link and send it to somebody, and all they got to do is click on it. And like I said, they can't hear you or see you until you add them to the stream. And so that's really, really helpful as well. But we found StreamYard has worked very well for our virtual author talks and StreamYard. Before we go on to the next slide, I forgot to add on there a couple more things that we use. We also use a thing called Wave Video. So we use Premiere Pro to edit videos. We have found a system called Wave Video for all of our virtual our virtual theater stuff and commercials and stuff like that we do for our library. We have found a thing called Wave Video, and Wave Video will you can upload the video, and it does auto captions for you. So you don't have to enter captions yourself. It automatically does that, which is really, really nice, because it's really time consuming to have to do captions, but you have to do them. And so it's really nice to have Wave Video automatically do that for you. And it's on a highlighted bar too, so it shows the highlighted bar as well. We use that, and then we also use Niche Academy. So Niche Academy is it's a platform that is basically a platform that lets patrons go back and watch other stuff without having to go to Facebook. We usually have QR codes in our Facebook videos, or on our website we have QR codes or the link, and they can click on that link and it will go straight to the video in Niche Academy. We have videos in our Niche Academy all the way back from 2015. So instead of having to dig all the way through Facebook, people can just go through our Niche Academy. They can find videos from 8 years ago or today, or yesterday. People can go back and look at videos from 8 years ago, today. So Niche Academy is really, really helpful. And it's not as backlogged as Facebook is. You have to look at all that stuff on there. It's just our virtual programs and our stuff that we've done before. And so next slide. So hybrid programs, Rachel already talked about this, but hybrid is virtual and in person. So some of those that we've done is Wayla, we talked about that. Author Talks, which we've done several Author Talks hybrid as well. We had one with Mara Leverett, who did the Devil's Knot, the West Memphis 3 case. And we had her live at the Benton Event Center, which we had about 400 people live. And then we streamed it on Facebook, which we had about 1,000 people on Facebook watching, I think it was. We've also done a stand-up comedy night before. which was this year. We did that for April Fool's Day, April Fool's stand-up comedy night. And so we did that this year. So we had 5 comedians that signed up. They were all from Benton, Bryan area. They signed up, and we had them in our lower reading area. We had 30 people show up to be in our live audience. And then we had about another 100 or 200 that watched it live on Facebook. So that was a lot of fun, and it wasn't hard to pull off. It was really easy. And then we, for the prize, we gave them a gift card to a local dinner theater around town, and we gave them we made a trophy, 3D trophy that we made from our 3D printer. So that was some of the things that we've done hybrid. We have also done a virtual rock and roll concert that we did hybrid. We did a virtual St. Patrick's Day leprechaun hunt, where we had one of my friends that I'm friends with. He's about 8 or 9. I do community theater, so I have a friend that's about 8 or 9, and he was our leprechaun. And we have a local theater around town that we use called the Royal Theater, where I do community theater shows, and they let us use the Royal Theater for a haunted house, not a haunted house, for a St. Patrick's Day leprechaun. And so that was a lot of fun because it was interactive. It was all virtual, but me and the guy who played the leprechaun and my other friend that were hunting the leprechaun were in person, and it was kind of like a choose your own adventure thing. So we filmed it. It was live, and we went live. We filmed it, and people said, go to the bathrooms, go upstairs, go this way, go that way. And wherever we had people tell us to go, we had booby traps set up, we had slime, we had a fishing net, we had trap doors. So, it was a lot of fun. So that was one of the things we've done. We've also done virtual talk shows where we had celebrities from our town, and we had a virtual talk show where we had a couple of celebrities, and we had a couple of musical guests that performed on the talk show. And so that went over really, really well. We only done it a couple of times because it's kind of hard to, pull off that one, but it was kind of fun. So that was a lot of fun. And next slide. You can go to the next slide, please. If not, I'll have it pulled up. Oh, there we go. Okay. All right. Oh, we missed a slide actually. So if you can go back one, please. There we go. All right. So partner with area libraries. So we like to partner with other libraries whenever possible. So we are part of our library personally. It's part of Mid-Ark, which is Mid-Arkansas Regional Library System. So we're part of 12 libraries. We all don't do programs together, but we do like to partner with other libraries for hybrid events. So like the Mara Lever Author Talk, we posted that on our Facebook page and surrounding libraries Facebook page as well. We have realized that with some of the surrounding libraries that they do the same author events or author talks. And so we thought, why not combine them? Why not get double the exposure instead of doing it like a month later? So it not only helps for views, which is great, but it also helps with build partnerships from your local libraries, which you can use for other things. Right, that's what we do. We're community-based. We're librarians. We're here for the community. So, it's other libraries are part of the community too. So, just be a big family and reach out and kind of get your other libraries involved and go from there. Okay, next slide. Okay, so don't be afraid to go big, as we talked about earlier. So, with COVID now, it's great because you don't have to pay for a hotel room, right? Or for food or board or anything like that. So you have a little bit more money to play with when it comes to asking presenters to come to your library, right? And you'll actually be surprised about who you can get for free. A lot of people will do events for free. So Mara Leverett, who again did the Devil's Knot, which was a movie with Reese Witherspoon as well. the West Memphis 3 case. So she's a New York Times bestselling author and all that. She did an event for us at the Benton Event Center, our local event center, which is the one we have 400 people at. She didn't charge us anything. It was free. We're also having a one-on-one with Wanda E. Brunstetter coming up, who writes a lot of the Amish romance books, and she's doing that for free as well. So don't be afraid to go big. Also, don't be afraid to be like, hey, can you help our library out? If they say no, that's great. But if they say, yeah, I can help you out, I don't want any charge at all. That's cool. You got more money for something else that you can throw into the community later on. Okay, so next slide. So virtual programming is changing the game, right? So COVID-19 brought a lot of bad things in the world, but honestly, without COVID-19, we probably wouldn't be where we are today with virtual programming, because most of ours was in person. We thought that was the only thing that people wanted to do was in-person programs, that they wouldn't sit at home and watch the Zoom, or they wouldn't sit at home and watch somebody talk online or host a game show or, whatever. But when we were closed for all that time, we had to do stuff still. So virtual was really cool because you can watch it from your house. You can be across the country. That thing we had people watching from Canada and the UK, right? I mean, they can't come to Arkansas or Illinois or anywhere and watch it. So it was kind of cool that they got to do that, and so it's cool that you can do virtual, and now you can do in person, you can do hybrid, you can do in person and virtual, you can combine them, which is the best of both worlds, because you can do in person stuff, but if you can't be there in person, then you can people can still watch it from other places. Don't be afraid to change with the times. It's changing. The world is changing every minute, every day, right? So don't be afraid to change. Ask other libraries for help. Ask other people for help. If you're stuck on an idea and you don't know how to do it, I mean, there's other people that have done it. There are plenty of library groups that will help you out. But we've had to change the way we think in terms of programming. And it's kind of cool. And really all you need for virtual stuff really is, for our end that we do we do a lot of outreach stuff. So we also do we do like Jackbox Games Night, which is online stuff. We do trivia stuff. So we do a lot of community-based things. So we have a hotspot that we use to go out. We've done we had to use hotspot a couple months ago, because a couple months ago we did library karaoke in person. So that was a lot of fun. So we had to use a hotspot for that. But of course we already had the microphone for karaoke for stand-up comedy night. But like tripods to film on, and stuff like that. And you can get a Zoom membership, but there's so much other stuff out there. It's cheaper than because I know Zoom charges if you have the Zoom, the plus subscription there. So StreamYard is great, and it's not very expensive. Live reacting is the same way. There are so many other platforms that you can use other than Zoom if you don't want to use Zoom. And they're easier to use. StreamYard is so much easier to use, in my opinion, than Zoom, and we like it a lot. And so also I forgot to mention a little bit about my library. So I'm from the Saline County Library. So in Saline County, in Benton, which is the main branch of our library, Benton has a population of about 36,000. Bryant has a population which is about 15 minutes away from Benton, away from us. We have two branches, one in Benton and one in Bryant. Bryant is about 20,000 people. And who I work with besides the library people, we have quite a bit. So I'm an adult programmer. And then I have another adult programmer as well. that I partner with. And then we have two community engagement librarians as well. They go out into the community and do stuff as well in the community. So I forgot to mention that earlier. Again, we're part of MidArc, which is Mid-Arkansas Regional Library System, which is 12 libraries throughout Central Arkansas that we go with. We average usually about 3 to 5 programs a month. So we have about 3 to 5 programs, not a month, sorry. We have 3 to 5 programs a week, usually what we do. My other adult programmer, she does lots of crafts. So lots of virtual crafts and in-person crafts. Stuff you can put together. So we do a lot of stuff like that. And so yeah, so that's my little spiel. That's my contact info on the screen there. So if you have any questions, you can contact me at that number 501-778-4766, or you can email me at that email address there. And I look forward to your questions here in a little bit when we get to the questions, but thank y'all for letting me be here all the way from Arkansas, that virtual thing. So thank y'all for letting me be here, and I appreciate it.
Mason, thank you so much. It's been excellent. Now on to Illinois Libraries Presents.
Hello, everybody here this afternoon. My name is Jennifer Chaika, and I am the Programs and Exhibits Manager at Arlington Heights Memorial Library. I'm also the Programming Chair for Illinois Libraries Present and one of the steering committee members and a co-founder. There are so many of us here today on this Zoom that are part of Illinois Libraries Present, so please know we are talking about what we're doing together, and we don't own it. It's for all of us and all of our communities, and we're just very happy to have time to talk about it. We'll give you kind of the quick version because we are very accessible. So you can always reach out to us at Illinois Libraries Present at Gmail. You can always find our website. And right now we are at the point where we are halfway through a pilot period of a 6-month programming. We will be continuing programming into the fall season, but today we'll cover what is Illinois Libraries Present? How and why did we begin doing this thing? What are some of the highlights of the collaborative virtual events so far? And then where are we at now? Assessing midway through a pilot, and what's next. Next slide, Carrie. So we did want to set a mission. That was something we needed to do very early on to determine what we were trying to achieve. So for a small group of libraries, which we had many people in many different types of positions that came together and started working on figuring out how we could formalize work around this, we decided that we wanted to be equitable, an equitable pricing model, that was one of the most important things. And that this was, again, for our communities. The intention of making these virtual events bigger was so that community members in every community across Illinois could participate in them. Next slide. So we are 192 member libraries strong, which is almost 1/3 of the libraries in the state of Illinois, which we are so, so proud of. You can see here what the geographic representation looks like. We would love to have more Southern and more Heartland libraries in there. As has already been alluded to in some of the earlier presentations, broadband access isn't always as wonderful there. So that is something that we have to figure out and work with our libraries to continue to see how we can serve. And those hybrid opportunities, the watch parties, some of the things that were mentioned earlier are certainly things that can apply to the Illinois Libraries Present events. Next slide. This is just a little shout out to all the libraries that are part of us. So Carrie can speed through these 4. These are always available on our website, so you can see which libraries are participants in our 6-month pilot. And we are grateful to every one of them. So going backwards, how did this begin? As Rachel had mentioned, there's a lot of invitations out there. She called it ad hoc. And so we loved seeing these ad hoc partnerships come together. As Mason said, the sky is the limit now that we're virtual. So there was no reason not to ask for big names, no reason not to pool money together. And it was happening all over the state of Illinois. What we did find out, though, that not everybody was being invited into these partnership programs. So that was what Illinois Libraries Present wanted to offer, an opportunity for everybody to be part of it. Okay, sorry. Let me catch the right slide. So how do you take that idea, take the success of the programs that you just saw? And one of those was actually delivered by Tracy from Northbrook, who I saw here on the Zoom. So thank you, Tracy, for doing one of those great partnerships. There were a lot of ideas. There were ideas being thrown around in the listservs that we participate in together. The small group of people that came together started talking with Rails. We were doing research, such as talking to Illinois, to IMLS, talking to different organizations, looking at other models of virtual events, looking at other humanities events models, looking at what was out there and seeing what we could learn from those things, connecting with one another. Then we became a little bit more formal in surveying the interest, using all of our listservs, getting out there, asking the directors, would you want to do this if we did this? Asking the programmers, would you want to do this if we did this? And when we saw that there was enough interest, designing the structure of how we would pull it together was kind of the big piece. So by last summer, we were ready to tell the world, we're going to be a thing. We can't wait to tell you more about Illinois Libraries Present, and we want you to be part of it. Next slide. So we did need to think about this at a program level, a special events delivery, basically, if you think about it. What were the things that we needed to make these events happen? Of course, we needed a programming committee, and the members who are here today, we are all members of the programming committee. We knew we needed to market the events. We knew we needed event production, and Rachel, who you heard from earlier, is also part of ILP and helps doing the back end of the production of each of our events. We knew we would need to look at all of the data, especially when we're looking at so many diverse libraries across the state. And we knew we needed that organizational structure. So that's what the steering committee provides. And next slide. But what will we offer? So this is kind of where we went from knowing that the organizational structure was coming together, knowing that the interest was there among libraries, and then we had to look back at what they told us. What did they want to see? So these are the things that they told us in our survey, which happened in the spring of 2021. What types of virtual events do you want to do together? And they wanted social justice issues and EDI speakers. Again, I should say you wanted best-selling fiction authors, you wanted best-selling nonfiction authors, and you wanted well-known speakers. And those are all pretty big umbrella topics, but those are the things that the programming committee looked at and said, what does that mean? What does that look like if we apply an EDI lens to that to try to bring in diverse voices and diverse experiences? What types of events can we put on together? And next. But this timing was very, very tentative because we did not yet have money. So each of you knows that you can't produce an event without money. Each of you knows that if we're doing bigger events and asking for bigger name featured speakers, that's going to be more money. So we really were in a chicken and egg moment when the programming committee came together and started doing our work. Thankfully, next slide. Oh, can you? Yeah, thankfully we got money. So these are our sponsors. The Illinois State Library is a funder of Illinois Libraries Present. $37,000 grant from them, which is humongous. And that gave us the money we needed to start making invitations and committing to contracts. Rails supports our billing. Rails supports what this is because it is resource sharing. And IHLS, who really did want to see more participation from the Heartland libraries, is funding accessibility of the events, which is part of what Rachel and the production team do for us. So now I'm going to pass it over to Carrie and Heather, who are going to tell you more about the events themselves.
Hi, everyone. Heather and I are just going to quickly go through the events that we have and the events we have coming up, and just kind of give you a clue into how we decided who we were going to choose and the pairings. So as we talked through authors, we always had EDI, at the top of our minds. We want to present diverse authors speaking on diverse topics. So we got through that, but then we had to think of who are we going to pair this author with? And that was the hard part because we're always looking for chemistry, magic, balance, whatever you want to call it. Folks who are either friends or fans of each other's work, or who will balance each other's energy. And also people that can kind of sit together, have a conversation and geek out on each other's work and riff off each other, and we all just get to be flies on the wall and sit and watch. So that's exciting. January, our kickoff event was Silvia Moreno Garcia. who wrote not American Gothic, sorry, Mexican Gothic, Velvet Was the Night, Gods of Jade and Shadow, a bunch of other great stuff. And we put her in conversation with a local Illinois author named Gus Moreno. They are not related, but they are both kind of writing in the same vein of Lovecraftian, weird horror. And they were fantastic to just sit and watch them talk about their books, their writings, what they liked, what they didn't like. And I feel like the audience really enjoyed getting to be in that intimate environment. You know, they were both sitting at home. And that was cool that they invited all of us into their homes to have a conversation with them. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Heather for our February event.
For our February event, I know that we're running over time and we want to get to our questions. So the pairing for Jasmine was Morgan Rogers, who I didn't know much about her work, but another romance writer. And we stumbled upon her because Jasmine wrote a rave review of her novel. And so we felt like that would be a good pairing. People responded to that event saying it felt like, you know, you were sitting around the kitchen table listening to them talk. So it was really lovely. You can move on, Carrie, to the next stage. I do want to say that is often we think that in-person events are more intimate, and that's why we like them. And but I have to say these virtual events that we have had bring a certain level of intimacy that doesn't often happen in person. I think because Jenny Lawson, again, paired with someone, they admired each other's work, our Eric Thomas. And so they were super engaged with each other, felt very comfortable with each other. Special bonus because Jenny was in her house. She showed us her taxidermied raccoon and other animals and their little outfits. So it just like you would never have that in an in-person event. And I think the whole point of these bigger events where you can collaborate with libraries is you're not taking away from what you're going to do in person, which might be some craft programming or something else, very local authors. It's just a supplemental program that you have that can bring bigger names and a different experience in the author's homes. Okay, I'm done.
Oops, I pushed the wrong button. Okay, so our next, and this is probably our biggest, well, not probably, it is our biggest event to date, is happening next Wednesday night. And we are going to be highlighting two amazing Native Illinoisans, Nick Offerman, best known Parks and Rec, and he is a writer, he is a woodworker, and his BFF, Jeff Tweedy from Wilco. They are close personal friends, and they are going to be Zooming with us from a cabin in the wilderness somewhere. They like to hike together. So we have over 5,000 people registered for this event next week, and I think it's going to be super awesome. But this was it was such a good pairing because they know each other intimately, and I think it's going to be hilarious. And everybody asking about the raccoon, yes, it was Rory. And then coming up in May, on the 18th, we have Michelle Zahner and Jessica Hopper. And this is a balance of energy. Michelle is pretty chill. She wrote the best-selling memoir, Crying in H Mart, and she's also the lead singer, guitarist, songwriter for the group, oh my gosh, Japanese Breakfast. Just nominated for 2 Grammy Awards. And then, but she's pretty low key. And Jessica Hopper is a high energy person. She's a Chicago music personality, producer. So that's coming up on Wednesday, May 18th. And I know we haven't said that yet, but pretty much every ILP event is going to be on a Wednesday night from 7 to 8 p.m.
This is, we decided to try some authors who were more up and coming, debut authors. These both are Illinois-based authors. That's all I'm going to say about that, just to get to time. We're excited about this one.
Okay, and finally, our last event for the programming period, for the pilot period, is going to be an evening with Chef Kwame Onwachi. He was on Top Chef, wrote the book Notes from a Young Black Chef, and then he has a new cookbook coming out this summer as well. We haven't paired him with anyone yet, but we're hoping to get him with a chef of some sort that is based in Illinois. Or actually, today I was watching YouTube videos of him on Selena Gomez's cooking show, and they were all flirty, and I thought, oh, that would be super cool too. But we'll have to see if that happens or not. And then I'll toss it back to you, Jennifer.
Okay, just wanted to show everybody what some of the event attendees are saying. That is something that's really important to us. These are specifically comments that are from the Jasmine Morgan event that Heather told you about. They echo what we're hearing about all of our events. We are trying in the virtual space again to create that warm and comfortable environment, and it's working. We've got people very, very active in the chat with one another. We've got facilitators and some authors who are very comfortable kind of watching the chat and catching that stuff and responding to it live, you know, in person while the event is happening. But yeah, people are feeling it was personal, like you were included in a conversation with friends. It was like talking to a friend. Can I be their friend too? So we feel like that is a win and something that we didn't know for certain would happen in the virtual space. And then next slide shows us just some of the feedback from the libraries who are members. It's hard when these events are all on Zoom and your person from your library may not be on screen. The beautiful thing about 192 libraries working together is we can do more together. The bad thing is we can't have 192 library staff on every event to say, hello, Peoria, hello, whomever. But this is what we're hearing. The patrons who are responding back to library staff are enjoying access to big name authors. They like the selection of speakers. They wish the sessions were longer, and we couldn't agree more, but we know that there's that balance. If they get longer, people may say they're too long. So that's just a little bit of what we're hearing. And the next slide, this is just showing you what the cost savings look like. So many early partnerships were purely cost split. Had we done a cost split with Illinois Libraries Present, our smallest libraries couldn't have participated in these events. So for a small library who has a community 250,000 and under in a rural area in Illinois, they paid $40 to get all 6 months of events. These events, if split evenly, would have been $40 at minimum. And next. Just kind of where we're going next and what we're doing next is we're doing, again, a lot of listening. We're doing this survey of our members so our libraries can tell us what are your communities talking about? What do your communities want to hear more about? And as a programming team, we're really assessing that opportunity to think about topics and not just a great speaker. We know we can find a good author. We know we can find a compelling personality. But what are the topics that are going to be most interesting to the community members who are part of Illinois Libraries Present? And it's a challenge. It's a real challenge because obviously there's a lot of different interests out there. So that is where we are next. But we do feel like we've hit a very nice niche format that is working well. And we expect that Illinois Libraries Present will be something that we will offer into the future. We've invested a lot in this model, and we hope that you will continue to make it part of your programming. It's not all of your programming. It's one option for you to offer your customers and your patrons and your community. So that is all for Illinois Libraries Present. And thank you all.
Thank you.
Wow, thank you all so much for that incredible presentation. Never apologize for going over. You all shared so much, and I know personally I took a lot out of it, and I know our guests did as well. So some of the questions that came up in the chat, and if you have one, shoot it down in the chat right now. But Mason, do the game show / trivia events happen purely virtually, or do you host hybrid for those ones particularly?
Yes, so the bingo one, we're starting to do hybrid in June. So we have done just straight virtual for bingo. For game show, we're keeping that virtual for good, I think. And then for trivia, we started doing virtual, and now we're doing hybrid. So we started last month doing hybrid. So where we can have people in person, but then they can watch it as well and still answer at the same time. So yes, so the trivia is hybrid, and then the game show is in person. All right, sorry, it's virtual.
Awesome. And then one more real quick. How accurate are the captions on Wave?
So they're actually very, very accurate. We've used Wave for, I think, quite a bit, about a year now. And so like that Romeo and Juliet thing that we had to do, of course, they had to be captioned. And so it saved a lot of time using Wave. Being able to caption a whole 1 hour Shakespeare show, it saved time than me having to type it in the script and follow along. And the good thing with Wave is it auto does it, and you can also change it if you have to change it. But Wave also allows you to have the banner that follows. So like karaoke, the colors follow the word as they're saying it. So that way it's up to date on the captions as they're saying it.
I had one other question for you, Mason. What was the website again where you can find the performers?
Oh, so for like our past ones that we've done.
Right.
So that one is it's called Niche Academy. So it's NICHE and then Academy. And then you should be able to just to type in our Saline County Library. Or
this,
you can,
I'm sorry. This was you mentioned it before, Niche Academy. You said something about a website where you can find performers.
It was Gig
yes. That was Gig Salad. So it's GIG Salad. Yeah, it's Gig Salad.
Oh.
And we found we found just one more there for the virtual concert. Yeah, they were really good. Yeah, they came from Gig Salad all the way from Minnesota. So
thank you very much. Also, how much prep time do you have to do for the shows that you prepare for specialty days, holidays? Like you mentioned the barbershop one.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So now for the one for Barbershop, I didn't have to do anything because, well, besides auto generate the captions, because that one, the Barbershop one, I asked them, and the people from Just One More filmed it. They filmed it. They took care of all the editing, and then it was sent to us. And the only thing we had to do is caption it and put it on Facebook. So.
Okay, thank you. I also wanted to mention that the one thing that has come out of this meeting for me is what a good thing the virtual world has been to come out of COVID. That's one good thing out of COVID is the virtual programming that libraries have turned to. It's booming, and it's a growing, changing animal. Thank you all.
Oh, yes, yeah. It really is. It really is growing a lot.
And all our presenters have been amazing.
Completely agree. I don't see any questions at the moment. Thank you all for providing your contact information. If you have any questions, you can follow up with each of our speakers via their contact information. And thanks so much for attending this Laconia Technology Section program. We hope to see you at many more in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks, Laconia.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.